Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I'm Lupinefiasco. This is Daily Fab Gameplay. You saw my Syndra deck tech, but I haven't forgotten about Fi, the original Draconic Ninja. I've done a lot of reworking with the list with the help of Only Run Very Noob. We think that there is something here with this same style of Block 2, Send 2, Aurora play that I copied from Pudding Tam's lists, and I wanted to bring that into the year 2022 with the new Fi guide. This is available on Fabry in the same spot that it has been for at least a year now. Front page of Fabry's most played lists finally has received an update. Rather than give you a breakdown of the new version, which you can see has quite a few changes, I thought that I would give you a more traditional style of deck tech. If you would like to try this list, it is in the video description below, as well as links to my Blue Sky, Discord, and Patreon. Patrons at the Arc Lightning tier and above will get the matchup guide for this list, as well as the matchup guides for all of my deck lists, including Syndra, Jarl, Aurora, and that's it. So, without further ado, let's talk about what Fi is doing in 2025. You got quite a few new cards from the Hunted, not nearly as much as Syndra, but he did also get cards that Syndra is not playing because he uses them much better. We can start with our equipment and see that Fi is using 4 of our old staples, those being Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, Searing Emberblade, Snapdragon Scalers, and most importantly, the Tiger Stripe Shuko. What Shuko does for Fi that it does not do for Syndra is let him get an additional point of power from the Phoenix Flame. Fi is playing many 2-power attacks that will trigger the first half of Shuko, and the Phoenix Flame that Fi gets from his hero power will pick up the second half of that Shuko trigger. So Syndra gets her +1 from Flick Knives, Fi gets his from Tiger Stripe Shuko. Shuko, of course, blocks for 2, which is much better in the mid to late game, as you find that you might need to cover the on-hit from a Command and Conquer, maybe a Snatch, a Burn Up, or a Channel Lightning Valley trigger. So Fi does get more use out of his armor than Syndra perhaps does. Though, of course, we are on Tunic rather than Flamescale Furnace. Furnace is in the sideboard. We'll get to it a bit later. But the reason we want to use Tunic is twofold. The first being that Fi is playing a lot more blocks in his deck now than he was previously back in Heavy Hitters, the last time that we really saw Fi be relevant. So his defensive value without a chest piece is very nice. And if he is playing this block 2, send 2 style of play, then he is able to potentially block 6 from hand, meaning that he doesn't need his chest piece to do the heavy lifting for him, and he can get use out of this Tunic counter every 3 turns. We'll cover in just a bit what exactly he's using it for. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is still Fi's best mask. He can't really use Mask of the Momentum so well. Syndra can definitely use it much better. And Kodachi Fi kind of doesn't exist anymore. You might as well just play Syndra, who does the Kodachi style of play much better than Fi does. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is a minimum of 5 damage if you find Lava Burst, and can be a maximum of 7, 8, or even 9 if you line it up with Shuko and Spreading Flames. And that is why we're playing it. Ultimately, the way that Fi functions is trying to put one big turn together. Syndra, with Mask of Momentum, is looking for value every turn by making it difficult for your opponent to block and trying to accumulate value from Mask of Momentum. Fi says, I'm probably never going to send more than 3 chain links in a turn unless it is the kill turn, and on the kill turn, that's when I want Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Mask of Momentum will draw multiple cards in a game, but they are random. Mask of Momentum will draw 1 card in a game, but it's always the best card for the situation, and so we are trying to optimize our Pouncing Lynx turn. And of course, Searing Emberblade is still Fi's de facto piece of equipment. It is not very good, admittedly, when we compare it to Starfall, what Starfall does for Aurora. We see that the 2 cost on Emberblade is extremely restrictive, but we can still get value from it. It is a draconic weapon. It will build us towards our Phoenix Flame. We still have our typical 2-card 7 of send something like a Brand with Cinderclaw, pitch a blue into the Emberblade, use the floating resource to pick up an attack with Phoenix Flame, and we have certain cards in our deck that make the Emberblade even better. But for the most part, we are not looking to work Emberblade into every turn. You can see that by our blue count of 9. And speaking of the blues, we can move down into our main deck and cover what they are and why we're playing them. Sort of hover in the middle here, we've got Brand with Cinderclaw blue, and then we also have Lava Vein Loyalty and Warmonger's Diplomacy. Warmonger's Diplomacy continues to just be a free inclusion for Ninja. It blocks for 3, it pitches for 3, it occasionally gets value against your Viscerais, Azaleas, potentially your Fangs, but for the most part this is Titanium Bauble that will cost you $300 for a playset. The effect is not replaceable. You want to play this against heroes who rely on a mix of attack action and non-attack action cards. It is just free to play. There's no downside to playing it in Fi. If you were looking to save $300 on the price tag for this deck, you could easily play Cinderskin Devotion in blue. We are not going to play it here because Warmongers is more applicable overall. But definitely don't break the bank for this card. We're also playing Lava Vein Loyalty on its own, not a very good card, costs 0, attacks for 1. We can probably get an extra point or 2 out of it on a Spreading Flames turn, or if we needed to trigger our Tiger Stripe Shuko, but for the most part it's here because it blocks for 3, and is occasionally an extender when we have full tempo and maybe need to just push a little more damage. Maybe Enigma has a board set up and we need to break through some Spectral Shields, but overall, this blocks 3, and that's why we're playing it. Brand with Cinderclaw only blocks for 2, but it does turn attacks Draconic, and as we get into the rest of our deck and you start to see our Art of the Dragons, you'll know that we do value the effect on Brand with Cinderclaw being able to occasionally turn something Draconic. Outside of that, it pitches for 3, it is an extender on a Spreading Flames turn. Even when we do not need to turn something Draconic, like an Art of the Dragon, on a Spreading Flames turn, this can make your Salt the Wound Draconic to get an extra point of damage. It could potentially make your Snatch Draconic if you're going wide enough. So despite it blocking for 2, we are playing it, though with the understanding that you're probably not trying to block with it so much as pitch it. We'll finally talk about the yellows. There are only 2 in the main deck, those being Salt the Wound. It blocks for 3, it pitches for an Emberblade attack, it is tutorable for Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, and on a turn where you've sent 5 or 6 attacks, it can potentially be very large as a way to end a game. You are very rarely looking to block with this, you will want to pitch it. Part of the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx playstyle says that you want to be aware of your finishers. Lava Burst is 3, Salt the Wound we have 2, so you have 5 finishers in your deck. Salt is easily pitched to Emberblade. Look to pitch it early so you can find it late with Pouncing Lynx. Finally, we will talk about the reds. We have many of them. Some of them are old favorites, some of them are brand new. So we'll just start at the start with Art of the Dragon Blood. This is a new card from The Hunted. For the most part, it is Wounding Blow. It is not Draconic at its base. It does block 3, it costs 0, it attacks for 4. It has text that is relevant sometimes. For the most part, it leans into our block 2, send 2 style of play, being half of a 2-card 8 or half of a 2-block 6. But when you can turn it Draconic with Brand with Cinderclaw or with our small amount of fealty generation, it can be very good. If you can line this up with Brand with Cinderclaw to make it Draconic and then discount the cost of your Spreading Flames or Mounting Anger, you are looking at a massively impactful turn. Getting to send Brand with Cinderclaw into Art of the Dragon, into Mounting Anger, into pick up and play Phoenix Flame is a 3-card 13. That is a very good rate. If you can play Spreading Flames for free, then pick up and play Phoenix Flame. maybe even send a Lava Burst at the end of that turn, you are looking at massive damage. But at its base, it blocks for 3, it attacks for 4, it's Wounding Blow, with upside sometimes. We're playing 2 Art of the Dragon Fire in the main board. I really come around on this card. I thought it was the weakest of the cycle, and now I think it is the only playable version from the cycle of 1 cost 5 power Art of the Dragon cards. If you can make this Draconic, it is a 1 for 7. Art of the Dragon Fire is 5's Chase the Tail, and it is worth working towards. We have 9 ways in our deck to make this Draconic, that being 6 copies of Brand with Cinderclaw, and we also have some fealty generation, which we'll get to in just a bit. This is your finisher, but again, it can sometimes just be a block 3, half of your 2-card block 6. If you can arsenal it, maybe you get to set up a 3-card hand of Brand with Cinderclaw into Emberblade into Art of the Dragon Fire, and it is a 3-card 10. Not incredible, but we are looking to end games with it, looking to set up that fealty and then play Art of the Dragon Fire as that 1 for 7. Blaze Headlong will always have a place in Draconic decks. It's a 0 for 4. It gets go again very easily. There really is no reason to not play Blaze Headlong. You know it, you love it. Not much to talk about here. Brand with Cinderclaw Red is the same. Really, every Draconic Ninja will play this until the end of time. It is a 0 cost, 3 power, 2 block attack action card that turns on your Brand with Cinderclaw, turns on your Searing Emberblade, turns on your Art of the Dragon cards. No reason not to play this. It's a staple. You know it. You love it. Display Loyalty is a new card from The Hunted. This is our nearly unconditional way of making fealty in Fi. This is effectively Lava Vein Loyalty. It only blocks for 2, but it makes fealty on attack. So as long as you have 2 or more Draconic Chainlinks, of which this is 1, you only need 1 Draconic Chainlink ahead of Display Loyalty, you will make fealty on attack. You don't need to hit. You don't need to worry about getting damage prevented. The only way that you would not get your fealty is if you attacked something with Spectra with this, but for the most part, you are making that fealty and then just banking it for your Art of the Dragons later on. Drop of Dragon Blood is a card that I was very excited about in Syndra and then gradually came down on, just because she didn't usually have a way to use that extra resource, and it could be very difficult for her to get value out of this in an all-red hand. It was usually just better for it to be a blue, but for Fi, who has a much larger amount of 0-cost starters than Syndra does, Drop of Dragon Blood feels a little more free. It's something I want to experiment with. What Drop does very well in Fi that Syndra can't take as much advantage of is combine with your Fiandal Spring Tunic to attack with your Emberblade. So if you're looking at a hand of Brand with Cinderclaw, Drop of Dragon Blood, you get to attack for 3, 6, play drop, make a resource, draw a card, activate Tunic, attack with Emberblade, pick up your Phoenix Flame, attack with that. You've sent a 3-card 10 that left you with a card to put into your arsenal. Alternatively, we have Art of the Dragon Fire, we have Mounting Anger, and we have Spreading Flames in this deck. So sometimes Drop will let you either go wider on a Spreading Flames turn, enable a Spreading Flames turn without a blue, or let you send a finisher without a blue. And I think that is a powerful effect that I want to experiment with. Fire Tenant Strike First is a new The Hunted card. This is here because of Only Run Very Noob. He had some good success with it, and he sold it to me on the idea that it is Ravenous Rabble, whose fail state is a 0 for 3 rather than a 0 for 2, and I think that is just a cool idea to play with. In its best case scenario, this is a 0 for 4. This attacks for 3, turns on your Blaze Headlong, which attacks now for 5, or turns your Brand with Cinderclaw into a 0 for 4. This is your Draconic Attack, not Draconic Attack action card. So if you were able to play Brand with Cinderclaw into Fire Tenant into Searing Emberblade, we are now looking at Emberblade attacking for 4. Fire Tenant just lets you get an extra point of damage out of your hand in most cases. even on your 2-card hands, this can be part of a 2-card 8. Fire Tenant into Blaze Headlong is just 8. Fire Tenant into Rising Resentment, Brand with Cinderclaw, whatever, is a 2-card 7. I think it's worth playing with. We're moving down to Ignite, which is a card that I am much more excited about in Fi than I am in Syndra, for the same reason that I'm excited for Drop of Dragon Blood. It pairs with Spring Tunic to give us a Searing Emberblade, or it lets us play Mounting Anger or Spreading Flames without a Tunic counter or a blue. This is also the first half of a Tunic trigger, Shuko trigger. Play Ignite, activate Fi, pick up your Phoenix Flame. That is now a 2-card 4, effectively a 1-card 4, because the Phoenix Flame was free to pick up. Ignite can enable some pretty cool turns, and I'm excited to start playing with it. Lava Burst has been in Fi forever. It's a 0 for 5. With Shuko, it's a 0 for 6. Fi's traditional line is to play a Draconic starter, pitch a blue for the Searing Emberblade, activate Fi, attack with the Phoenix Flame, then attack with Lava Burst. For a 3-card 13, you are very above rate with that line, and Lava Burst only gets better with Spreading Flames or tutoring with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Loyalty Beyond the Grave is a card that I was excited for in Syndra, fell off of because we just needed more ways to threaten multiple Mask of Momentum triggers in a turn, but I think this will work very well for Fi, who is trying to play smaller hands while he looks for a very big hand. When Loyalty Beyond the Grave is part of your 2-card block 6, you are getting your full defensive value from it. Then, on a turn where you are given space to keep 5 cards with Spreading Flames or Ignite or Drop of Dragon Blood, Loyalty becomes a 6th card in your hand, while living in a zone that your opponent generally can't touch. Your Assassin opponent may be able to banish this from your graveyard, your Mystic opponent may be able to pass over, but if your game is going long enough that you can get 2 loyalties into your graveyard, when you find the room to keep 5 cards, this is your 6th card and will contribute to Fi going way over the top. That is what we have built this deck to do. We want to block 2, send 2, until we find a massive 5-card hand. Loyalty creates a 6-card hand. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx creates a 7-card hand. Picking up your Phoenix Flame makes for 8 cards. We're just playing Zen at that point. I should say about Loyalty Beyond the Grave and Sink Below, which we will get to in just a bit. Art of War is banned. Art of War is no longer playable in Classic Constructed, and it taught a lot of aggro players, myself included, that we should not play defense reactions in aggro decks, and it made sense. When you played Art of War and drew 2 Sink Belows, that, for the most part, was a wasted Art of War. You wanted your deck to be entirely comprised of hits for Art of War, but we no longer have that penalty. If your Loyalty Beyond the Grave draws you into another defense reaction, that feels a little worse. But hitting a defense reaction from your Snatch is totally fine. You just stick it into Arsenal, and you can get value from it on your opponent's turn. Loyalty Beyond the Grave plays around Dominate. It plays around Leave No Witnesses. It plays around other forms of non-Command and Conquer Arsenal disruption. So we get our value from our defense reactions. Your first 2 Loyalty Beyond the Graves are worth 4.5 points of value because they each block for 3 for a total of 6, and then later combine to draw you a card which on average is worth 3. So our first 2 loyalties are 4.5 points of value. Our Sink Belows are 4 points of value. They didn't use your action point. You want to be playing D-React in your aggro decks, and Fi, with this style of block 2, send 2, uses them very well. Mounting Anger is an old staple. I am moving down on my 1-cost cards because I've moved down on my blue count. I want to make sure that my turns are more powerful, but Mounting Anger is effectively a 1 for 5. It is a draconic attack action. There are new hunted cards that can get this 1 for 5 value, but they are not draconic. And the fact that we have the Phoenix Flame in our discard that we really want to pick up with Fi says that we want to be playing our draconic 1 for 5. So that's why Mounting Anger is here instead of something like a Grow Claws. Mounting Anger works really well with the Phoenix Flame. If the Mounting Anger hits, you can order your trigger such that you activate Phi in response to the trigger, pick up your Phoenix Flame, banish it to the Mounting Anger, and then attack with the Phoenix Flame, which now attacks for 2. But you can also start with Mounting Anger and then banish a Rising Resentment or a Brand with Cinderclaw if it hits. If the Mounting Anger gets blocked, maybe you open the door for a Snatch to hit later on in the turn. Mounting Anger is just a very solid card. It synergizes with Drop of Dragon Blood and Ignite, so we do just play Mounting Anger. It's great. Oath of Loyalty is a new Majestic from the Hunted. I personally think it's better in Phi than in Syndra. Phi really cares about having a Draconic red on the chain, especially if it has Go Again. Oath of Loyalty will turn on your Blaze Headlong. It will turn on your Searing Emberblade. Oath plus a blue is a 2-card 8 as you attack with Oath, then Emberblade, then the Phoenix Flame. It's a 2-card 8 with Blaze Headlong. It is potentially part of a 2-card 9. More than that even. If you have your Tunic up, play Oath of Loyalty, then play Ignite. Use your Tunic to pay for the Emberblade, then activate Phi. You are getting, I believe, a 2-card 11 out of that setup. It is just very good. It blocks for 3 on its own. It attacks for 4. Just a very, very solid card that works with what Phi is trying to do. We play the 1 of Phoenix Flame so that Phi always has an effect. Multiple Phoenix Flames will just be the worst card in your deck, which is why I am only playing the 1, at least in the main. I do have a second Phoenix Flame in the sideboard, which I will talk about in just a bit. But every Phi deck is going to play the 1 Phoenix Flame, unless it is some weird fatigue version where it just wants to have more cards in the main deck. That is not what we are trying to do. We play the Phoenix Flame. It's the whole reason that the deck functions, that we play our Shuko. This is a chain link for Lava Burst. It is a chain link for Salt the Wound. It gets buffed by the Spreading Flames. It is a target for Mounting Anger. Phoenix Flame just works very well with our entire deck. Rising Resentment does not have a place in Syndra. I do think it has a much better role to play in Phi. It is a Draconic starter for the Emberblade. It is a Draconic chain link for the Phoenix Flame. It can discount our Spreading Flames and Mounting Anger if it hits on chain link 2 or higher. It is just a standard Phi card. We've been playing it since 2022 and will continue to play it in the future. The same goes for Ronin Renegade, which is where you all get your namesake. It is a Draconic starter. Works with the Emberblade, works with Phoenix Flame, Spreading Flames, Mounting Anger. No reason not to play it. Sink Below is sort of a new addition to the deck. I mentioned it when talking about Loyalty Beyond the Grave. Phi would really only ever play Sink Below in the matchups where you boarded out your Art of War. Traditionally, that was your Guardian before Victor, really just Bravo and maybe Azalea. Matchups where you really couldn't count on firing off a big Art of War. So you would board out a non-block and board in a 4-block, but Art of War is no longer here. We are looking to play to this block to send to style of play. Sink Below works very well with that. It also provides hand fixing. If you need a Draconic starter to get your turn going, Sink Below can provide it to you. If you happen to draw a hand with 2 blues, the second one being extraneous, you can sink it and usually will draw into something much better for the upcoming turn. The more that I play Flesh and Blood, the higher I go on Sink Below. I don't expect that I will ever build an aggro deck that does not have Sink Below somewhere in the 80. This Sink Below just happens to be in the 60. Snatch has been one of the best Phi cards since 2022, and it remains so. It is card draw at the end of a turn. It is part of a 2-card 8, pairing very well with your... I guess it really doesn't, does it? If you have Fealty, it pairs well with Oath of Loyalty. If you have your Snapdragon Scalers, you can open with a Snatch, which will turn on your Blaze Headlong. But for the most part, your Snatch is probably just going to be part of a 2-card 7, pairing with any of your Draconic starters. If you have a fealty and your Snapdragon Scalers, you can use it to open the door for Emberblade Phoenix Flame, but Snatch is really one of your better finishers. You want to be sending big damage ahead of the Snatch and then end with the Snatch and try to find that card for your arsenal. And finally, we have Spreading Flames, one of the most powerful cards available to Draconic Ninja. Syndra makes great use out of Spreading Flames with her kunai, but Fi makes excellent use out of the Spreading Flames as well. If you are able to sequence your turn so that the Spreading Flames is immediately followed by Phoenix Flame, you can set up some very cool sequences where Spreading Flames buffs the Phoenix Flame, then plays something like an Ignite, which now gets the Spreading Flames buff. That puts your third chain link on the chain so that your fourth chain link could be something like Tunic Emberblade. Now Emberblade attacks for 4. There are very cool sequencing decisions to be made with Spreading Flames, and learning the best way to use it is going to drastically increase your win rate as Fi. It also pairs excellently with Drop of Dragon Blood, or with Ignite, or with your Spring Tunic. Note that Spreading Flames can affect itself. If you somehow put a chain together where you have attacked with maybe Brand with Cinderclaw, Ignite, and play the Spreading Flames sees itself on chain link 4 and will actually attack for 4. So while you usually want to open with the Spreading Flames, for whatever reason it may be to your benefit to not open with it, and you can get its value later. That is the 60. Dedicated Fi players will recognize a lot of these cards. Even the new cards just happen to be 0 for 4s or 0 for 3s with Go Again. But there are some cool synergies here that I'm really excited to experiment with. We can talk about the sideboard as well. A lot of this will be familiar to Fi players as well. The third art of the Dragon Fire lives here. This will replace your Drop of Dragon Blood in the Assassin matchups, where you are not expecting to be able to keep large hands. You may just want to 1-card 5 off of a Tunic, or you may be looking to keep a 3-card hand where you can Starter, Emberblade, Fealty, Art of the Dragon. On a 2-card hand, you could play Brand with Cinderclaw, activate Tunic, activate Fealty, attack with Dragonfire for a total of 10 off of 2 cards. But for the most part, in those Assassin matchups, this blocks for 3. The same goes for Enlightened Strike, blocks for 3, attacks for 7 off of 2 cards. This is here for your matchups where you won't get to keep as big of hands. The reason I don't have this in the main deck, which is a departure from where I was previously with Fi, is that you really only want E-Strike if you can consistently get value out of the first mode, which is to draw a card. Sending a 2-card 7 is not above rate, it is on rate. If you consider that a card is worth 3 points and your action point is worth 1, then spending 2 cards for E-Strike is an on-rate play. The reason that we're okay with playing an on-rate card like E-Strike is in these Assassin or Guardian or Ranger matchups where you're limited by the number of cards you can keep in hand or the number of action points available to you. E-Strike as a way to convert 2 cards when you are only expected to be able to convert 1 is really good. In Aurora, who is consistently giving Go Again to her attacks from Embodiment of Lightning or Arc Lightning, Enlightened Strike is really good because you're getting to draw a card, which on average would be worth 3 points of value, meaning that E-Strike is a 2-card 8, which is an above rate play. But in Fi, who only has one way to give Go Again to his attacks, being Snapdragon Scalers, your E-Strike is only ever going to be 7, and a lot of the time in the main will be worth 5 because you gave it Go Again. And a 2-card 5 is a really bad rate. You really don't want to be doing 2-card 5s. This is okay if you are playing multiple Phoenix Flames in your deck. Being able to pick up a Phoenix Flame and then bottom it to the E-Strike is effectively a 1-card 7, which is a very above rate play, but at the cost of your Phoenix Flame. And because Fi's playstyle is so reliant on him being able to pick up and play those Phoenix Flames, you really never want to bottom it unless you're going to win the game on the spot. So rather than tempt you and tempt myself to bottom the Phoenix Flame as part of a losing play, or to burn my Snapdragon Scalers on the E-Strike, where I am instead keeping it to put a larger Lava Burst, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, Snap, Salt the Wound turn together, or perhaps using it to give Snatch or Blaze Headlong Go again to unbrick a hand. I am keeping E-Strike in the sideboard and bringing it in for very specific matchups. Similarly, we have Flamecall Awakening and the second copy of Phoenix Flame. For the most part, these are used in the same matchups where you would bring in Enlightened Strike. Having a second Phoenix Flame in your graveyard for the E-Strike lets you E-Strike, bottom Phoenix Flame, send 7 much more reliably, and putting that second Phoenix Flame back into your deck is even good for the second copy of Flamecall Awakening to re-find. We're also playing this in our Mystic matchups, where Passover is a real threat. If the Passover hits your Phoenix Flame and you just lose the ability to do that for the rest of the game, that can be extremely detrimental. So Flamecall Awakening just lets you find your second Phoenix Flame to replace it. New addition to the game, Shelter from the Storm from the Hunted, is here for the matchups where we want more defense reactions. Your Guardians, your Assassins, but potentially also your Runeblades. Shelter from the Storm being a way to reliably block 4 points on something like a Rune Flash, a Widespread Attack, a Ninth Blade, but also being a red that can pitch to Arcane Barrier like a blue would is really good. We could potentially bring this in against Syndra to stop 6 points of damage from something like a Poisoned Blade. Shelter from the Storm just has a lot of versatility. This is probably the second best generic defense reaction in the game behind Sink Below, but certainly ahead of Fate Foreseen, and that's why we're playing it. It works very well with our block to send to style of play. Energy Potion is a new addition to the sideboard that I'm experimenting with, and this is for your grindier matchups, and this is for your assassin matchups where you might not get to keep large hands. If you can play an Energy Potion, you are effectively keeping 2 pitch in hand, but in a zone where your opponent can't touch it, and this helps us with our ultimate end game where we're trying to put a 6-card hand together with Loyalty Beyond the Grave when we get some space. Imagine a hand of 5 cards that becomes 6 from Loyalty Beyond the Grave, that becomes 7 from Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, that becomes 8 from Phoenix Flame, and now imagine those 8 cards don't have a single blue in them, but you get to use your Energy Potion to attack with Searing Emberblade. That is a massive, massive turn, and is going to be enough to overwhelm your Assassin, your Guardian opponent, and put them on the back foot in such a way that they can never recover if they don't just die on the spot. Flamescale Furnace is our old reliable. This is Phi's Dyadic Carapace. It blocks 3 in matchups where that matters, usually your Assassin, potentially your Guardian. It blocks for 2, then it blocks for 1. The actual effect is sometimes relevant. 95% of the time you won't activate your Flamescale Furnace, but occasionally there are turns where you would pitch a red to play a Mounting Anger and then pitch another red to Furnace to generate 2 resources so that you could attack with Searing Emberblade. Very rarely is something you want to do. You get a cool line where you could play something like Brand with Cinderclaw, then pitch a red to Flamecall Awakening, which finds Phoenix Flame, then pitch the Phoenix Flame to Flamescale Furnace, which makes 2 resources and lets you attack with Searing Emberblade. So you do have some cool plays with Flamescale Furnace, but for the most part it blocks for 3. Finally, we have Tide Flippers. This may very well get cut as I find new situations that I need extra help for. Really, we are only playing 9 blues, and potentially we could play 12 in a wizard matchup, but that does not feel like enough blues where I would ever want to pitch them to Arcane Barrier. If I'm holding a blue, I'm probably pitching it to Emberblade, and I'm not finding blues reliably enough that I could bring flippers in against something like a Viserai or a Vincent. So we have Tide Flippers in because it's familiar and it's safe, but as I play more of the deck and learn more of what Phi wants to be doing in the Hunted meta, this will very likely change. Finally, we can talk about our Maybeboard. There isn't much in here. We have Tenacity, which can be very good in a meta where we are getting blocked out against a class like Guardian, particularly a hero like Victor. Victor can block with a ton of armor, Victor can block with a ton of cards from hand, but if we are able to go wide enough that we can get even just one hit, we can break Pouncing Links to find Tenacity. The reason that Tenacity is not in the board is that if we are forcing that many blocks out of our opponent, we probably got enough value out of the turn. Tenacity on its own is not very good, and even as a late game card, it can just be a little clunky, so we'd rather have Salt Wound than Tenacity, and that's why Tenacity just isn't in the deck. There just isn't enough space for it. Maybe one of Tenacity could take the place of Tide Flippers if Guardian ends up coming back in a big way, but outside of that, we just get more value out of our Lava Burst or our Salt Wound as a Pouncing Links target. Finally, Yellow Brand with Cinderclaw is always a consideration. It is an extra Draconic enabler for our Art of the Dragons. It is a 2-power attack for our Tiger Stripe Shuko, but if there's a world where I can cut my yellow 2-power and put in a red 3-power attack, I'm going to. And with the addition of our Art of the Dragons, our Oath of Loyalty, and our Ignite, I am very hopeful that 5 finally has the card pool available, that he doesn't need to play junk like Yellow Brand with Cinderclaw or Yellow Rising Resentment. So that's the deck. Fi finally got his support. It only took 2.5 years, but he's finally made up for winning Worlds back in 2023. He's finally getting the help he needs to hopefully put him over into Living Legend. Hopefully you still have your Fi cards from 2022 so that you don't have to spend too much to get into this deck. It is a little problematic that he is so close to Living Legend, because if he does end up popping off in Road to Nationals or the Pro Tour, then he is just gone. But I don't know that he will be that good, and hey, you know what? For a channel that used to be called Daily Fi Gameplay, I will certainly enjoy him while I still can. But that is the deck. I'm very excited about this style of play. I love the block to send to style with Aurora, and I think Fi has a lot going for him. He has better blocking equipment than Syndra does. He has a higher average defense value per card than Aurora does. He has less spike potential in the form of Burn Up or Channel Lightning Valley, but Mask of the Pouncing Links is a much better offensive option than something like Crown of Providence, and a big Spreading Flame turn is really, really nice to be able to put together. So hopefully you enjoy this style of Fi as well. As I said, the deck list is available in the video description below. Go out, get your reps, iterate, let me know what is and isn't working for you in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to a draconic head jab that like button. I have a Patreon, a Discord, and a Blue Sky, all of which are available in the video description below. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It is free. It helps me out a lot. I'll be bouncing between Fi and Syndra for the next week or two in my gameplay reviews before we maybe try a little more Aurora or KO, but very excited to be back in the Draconic Ninja headspace, and hopefully you are too. So until the next time I see you on Daily Fab Gameplay, take care.